how safe is your child's trip to and from school? Although 71% of the general population say it's safe, there is 29% feeling that their child's trip to and from school is not safe. And when asked the reasons, you can see it's about road accidents, traffic accident while walking, poor driving of school bus, and also crime, fear of being kidnapped or a robbery happening to them. So again, for a city that is striving to be what it is, it keeps telling us, a third is not good. So when you need to go somewhere in Nairobi that you haven't been before, how do they get information about the best way to get there? Now we'll see that internet usage is very high. We have Google Maps mentioned specifically. We have the internet, which means going to a website to just check for direction. We have using a phone application to just that gives direction. But we also have friends within the general population. People will rely on their friends for this kind of information. So is that the way Nairobi City County wants to be in the 21st century? Or does it want to change that by ensuring that citizens in the county can get this information without really having to talk to their friends? I think that's one of the challenges that citizens are posing here. Indirectly though, 18% from the general population saying yes, the air quality in Nairobi is good. Again, this is not based on anything, it's just asked in general, what is your opinion of the air in Nairobi? Is it good, is it bad, or is it somewhere there? But as you can see, those saying it is very bad, that is from the general population, it is 69%. It is bad. It is either bad or very bad. So it's bad. And do you think it affects your health? Almost all of them say yes, it has an effect on their health. They might not talk about it on a day-to-day basis like they do about other things, but what you see here is Nairobians are aware of this issue. So again, that is a big challenge to the government. What are we going to do about the air quality? Are we going to plant more trees? How are we going to clean up and ensure that residents enjoy living in an environment that they need to live in?
Let's move on to the next bit of it. And before we open up the floor, we just wanted to have some specific reactions from our representative from the government particularly, and of course one or two key stakeholders who are in the room. So Engineer Mburu, I don't know what you think about what you've heard, and if there's something you want to share with us in terms of anything that you are doing to address some of the issues that have been raised or the plans that you have.
The NMTs as a human being and the public transport, not vehicles. Because roads and all transportation conveyors are meant to transport people, goods and services. Why? This is a business. Transportation is a business. On the issue of attitude change, it's high time we forget about our private vehicles, because the statistics have also indicated that wherever you have got vehicles, concentration, pollution also deteriorates. And for those of us from the statistics who have actually got worried of where to go, by which route, you always consider the following four main areas. Number one, is it direct? And you have had instances, and people have seen it. Fatal accidents happen to pedestrians crossing directly on the roads and not using designated pedestrian crossing areas. With those very many and few remarks, thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Mburu, for those very useful remarks and telling us what the county is doing. I think the issue of NMT policy, we are very keen on it because we have the policy in place, but we are a bit worried about the next step, which is implementation. So we still want to engage you further to ensure that we have the actual implementation taking place. So we also have a representative from the Ministry of Transport, Bwana Shiwani Martin, and perhaps he just needs to tell us briefly from the policy perspective or from the ministry point of view, his reaction to what you've heard in terms of the presentation.
If some of you may know that we have integrated national transport policy for the entire nation. In this policy, we cover a number of issues. On urban transport, how can we improve transport in the cities to minimize the time people take to move from point A to point B? How can we improve the economic development of city? How can we improve trade, given that transport plays a key role in all the functions, in everything that we do around the city? For instance, at the moment we have issues like, can we have BRT system in the city with the aim of convincing most people who use their own personal vehicles to leave their personal vehicles at home and start using public transport. But from the study you can get the concerns being raised. Some of these concerns touch on safety. And if people with personal cars were to be asked, one of the things I believe they will say is that it is because we do not have a reliable and efficient public transport system. But there is also the general thinking among the Kenyans. From the study, you have seen those households without vehicles are saying, what is their most preferred mode of transport? Apparently they are talking about personal cars, 60%, and that's quite high. We have also seen figures from households with cars. That use of personal cars is very high. That means that the thinking among us as Nairobians or as Kenyans is we value personal cars. Thank you very much.
So very quickly, I'll request our partner also, Bright Oyuaya, just to give her remarks. Can you just speak from there? Or you can turn.
The one thing that I quickly want to tell the policy makers and guiders, that as much as you may think that you're communicating with Kenyans, we have seen the perception of Kenyans is that they're not consulted when policies are being deliberated on. I think you will have to revisit the mode of communication. You may think, because communication is not just about sending out, it is also about being received by the supposed recipient. The very key thing that has come out from these polls that I'm very happy about is the 97 to 98% public support on reduction of speeds around schools. This is because I am in a task force and the other members are ILA, and I can see the Executive Director Vincent Kimosop here, Gatwick Children's Hospital, Salama Watch Initiative, and we are pushing and supporting the traffic amendment bill that is in Parliament. That one of the salient aspects of it is that we are calling for the reduction of speed around schools to up to 30 kilometers an hour. And I know this will raise eyebrows, but if you understand what this is about, then you'll see where we are coming from. We have seen up to 97 to 98% of the Nairobians saying we want speed reduced. And we are saying in the perimeter of the school, just within the perimeter of the school, we would like it reduced by 30 kilometers per hour. This is based on science. It is not just a figure that we picked from anywhere. We know from science, we know that WHO tells us that if a child is knocked at 30 kilometers an hour, they have a 90% chance of survival. If you increase the speed to 50%, then the chance of survival goes down to 45%. If you increase the speed to 60, then it is 10% survival rate for children. So we are saying to support our children, and we have seen that 57% of our children walk to school in Nairobi County, according to this study, then that is a bill that we should all put our effort towards supporting. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Bright, for those very useful comments. Without taking any further time, let me open the floor and also get to hear from you, just your reaction. If you have any question as pertain the presentation, I think it will be interesting to hear from you. Okay, at the back.
Yeah, there was one issue, I don't know why, maybe you can explain it, that was conspicuous by its absence in all the questions you've asked the respondents, and that is, are you satisfied with the current level of policing and enforcement? Because school speeds, everything relies on it. There is a, it's touchingly naive to believe that laws are self-enforcing. They're not. You need enforcement, stiff penalties, if you want to get things done. They're not going to be done otherwise. So I don't know why that. I know the answer. The answer would be probably 95% are not satisfied. It would be good to have it amongst all the other issues.
Thank you very much for that. I think we should be able to give a response. Any other question or issue? Yes?
We have been doing short little surveys, focus groups. Almost everybody has suffered at some stage from pilferage, either at the stop or on the bus. I spoke to a lady recently and she said twice she's had her mobile phone taken. So that is a problem of theft. I think we all need to remember, we were talking about where do the Matatu routes and the buses operate. They operate where they can make a profit. They do not get any subsidy, and therefore they will not go where they have to go and make a loss. So we know roughly where they're making money, but we don't know where people want to go, which is not the same as making money.
Thank you very much for those useful comments and questions. Do you have any other reaction? Yes? Yes, Tom?
Victor, you mentioned that the use of mobile phones, a database collected through household surveys, of course, had, I think you said, a 5% bias in terms of the very poor or people who don't have such phones who wouldn't be in Nairobi captured. It might be interesting to take a small selection of these questions and put them in the next national survey that's being done, where we have about 200 respondents in Nairobi, being about 10% of Kenya's population, and just compare the data and see how, to the extent to which these numbers are replicated, just as a test. And then just finally, I'm wondering from the point of view of our officials from county and national government, is there anything in particular that you learned that you didn't know before, at least in extent, degree, proportions, and especially our colleague from the county, do you think there would be advantage, and if so, in what way, in the other 46 counties?
I would like to throw two questions into the round. One of them is on carpooling, and we've actually have been discussing the same topic just this morning when we've been stuck in traffic, looking around to see so many cars where there's one person in the car. So we've been asking ourselves, would Nairobians actually, if they had the opportunity in an app or even companies promoting it, would Nairobians actually do that? Or is it maybe connected to the mindset that everyone wants to have a car, that you need some privacy and so on? So we would be very interested in reasons, if they're interested, or if in the reasons if they're not interested in it.
So perhaps I'll ask Victor to just come and give some reaction, or Jack.
Thank you. So I'll try and respond to a few questions. I'll start with Tom, who is my colleague, with whom we work very closely on a day-to-day basis. So Tom, yes, we will definitely carry some questions in the national survey that is going to run next month, and hopefully see how Kenyans across the country respond, and within the 200 sample in Nairobi County. Now, somebody has talked about carpooling. I think that could be two things. This is not factual because we did not ask in the survey, but I think safety could be an issue. If you are coupling, are you coupling with people who are familiar, with whom you're familiar? Because you then want to be assured that when you reach, if you're on Waiyaki Way, you don't find yourself in Naivasha and with some ransom on your head. Also, what is the mindset? Because what we see from the data, if more of the general population are saying that if cost was not an issue, they would use private cars, is it that we are dealing with a more aspirational citizenry, one that aspires to have a more comfortable life? And how do we unpack that? How do we make public transport cool? That's the thing. If it's going to be cool, then it has to be clean, spacious, and inviting. Well lit, for example. In US, we know people enjoy public transport, I do, because the buses are very clean in some cities that we go to, and very well lit. But in Nairobi, how safe do you feel in a bus on your way to Kino, on your way to Athi River? So how cool is it? Because you also know Nairobians like cool things. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Unless, Jackie, you have something to add.
Yeah, I was going to add one thing, or two. Well, I think, I just want to say I always bring goodies. We're also trying to use technology to get other kinds of transportation data. So with cell phones, we have, through the Digital Matatus project, which we launched last year with Kara, developed a Matatu map for the city. That this is information that can be given to citizens in various forms, including telephone apps. And this was done by students at the University of Nairobi with their faculty. Again, we're happy to work with you to generate useful data. Now, we also saw that a lot of people might be lured out of their cars into bikes. So the next question is, where would they like to see some bike lanes in the city? So we have opened up a map where we're starting to crowdsource. What that means is get feedback from cyclists, where they have infrastructure in the city and where they would like to see it. Again, a useful resource for the city. The city is welcome to take all of these things. And in fact, the governor has endorsed the Matatu map as the map for the city. And also the traffic amendment bill. I think the data shows that a lot of people would be very supportive of finally some legislation that protects school children. You know that your kids are on Matatus? Can you imagine that? They get lost and they're dumped at a police station. School buses are not regulated. I've actually heard of Matatu drivers who learn on school buses. Is that acceptable for your children?
Thank you very much, Jackie, for those comments, but we still need to hear from our friends. So, Engineer Mura, I think there's a question that has anything surprised you on this poll? Is there something that you're knowing for the first time today? And do you think that we can have similar polls in other counties to inform decision making? So do you want to react to those two and any other?
Yes. Thank you very much. I think the two questions, number one, is there anything surprising? Yes. Because number one, this is real. One of the tricky things in carrying out census, particularly the data you're actually using, the 2009 data, is that you are actually counting the sleeping population for the city of Nairobi. The working population might be more than double that.
Yes.
And the statistics show that about more than 60% of the people who actually do business in the city are actually non-residents of the county. Perhaps that is one of the areas we need to address. If you can transact that business shortest time possible, the better. Consider a case where you are working in the rural areas and you concentrate your products in a specific area. You can have transportation systems in this L and N such that the system only comes in when it's only adequate for that to be conducted. I think this is the way to go. And it's a challenge to go to other countries and do exactly that. Thank you much.
Thank you very much. And Sean, any reaction?
Yeah, briefly. Any reaction about areas that we need to do? Tom Wolf, yes, there are a number of areas that we like to get more information, more data to help us planning. I was actually discussing with the presenter, and we have agreed that he makes plans to be in my office. We look at possible areas where we may need further study. There is somebody who gave a statement that school buses are not regulated. To a large extent, yes, but not really. The school buses are regulated in the sense that they are given guidelines on how to operate, particularly the public schools. Madam Bright, you are aware that we developed comprehensive guidelines to be used by public schools, which was communicated to all the schools through the Ministry of Education. And that one is in use. Thank you. But I have just to request one thing. There is a meeting elsewhere shortly after this, and I'm supposed to provide some information. So I'll ask that I leave slightly early.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes.
we are done.
Okay. Then I can actually leave.
No, just sit for 2-3 minutes.
Oh,
and we
okay.
close. Yeah.
I hope you'll be riding on a horse.
I just walked to my office.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiwani, for those reactions. Yeah, I think he's emphasized that he will walk to his office, and
Well done.
most of us need to start walking and provide the right facility. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are coming to the end of this, and we are extremely grateful for your attendance, participation, and for giving us your input on what has been presented in terms of the poll. Actually, we were just discussing with Jackie the other day that this should be a new approach in terms of advocacy and even just making people in position of authority to have information on what people think and use that to make decisions. So it is our desire and expectations to have regular polls on a number of issues that are really critical and dear to us. So without any further comment, let me declare the session closed, and let's continue engaging and interacting over a cup of tea that is just outside here. And of course, continue discussion online or through whichever means. Thank you very much.
Forum was convened to release the first ever public opinion poll results on transportation for Nairobi County. The poll involved a telephone survey of over 800 residents, car-owning households, and then a representative sample of Nairobians.
And one of those areas that we were looking at was their views in terms of their preferred mode of transport. We also wanted to understand what they think about the security of the public transportation. There was also the aspect of air quality within Nairobi, of course in relation to issues of transportation, and also just to try and get to understand what kind of means of transport that most Nairobians use.
And so far in the history of the city, the focus has been on making it easier for people to get around in private cars. But what the survey showed was that the majority of people are using public transport, or they're walking, or they're going by cycle. And these are the users that have been ignored so far in the transport planning in the city. And so we really need to shift our focus. We need to start thinking about efficient modes of transport that can carry a lot of people, that are affordable for the city, and that are environmentally sustainable.
We are using this survey as a new approach of advocacy and also of getting information from the public and hopefully sharing the same with the government, relevant government agencies, with the expectation that they'll be able to make use of it in making decisions and engaging the public more.